Ladies and gentlemen, it's another episode of Mind Your Puckin' Business with your host, Jeffrey Krensman.
Thank you, Dougie Sticks.
My pleasure.
We went, and I guess the camera doesn't film here. The camera doesn't roll before, but we went from like pre-show to like right into the show there in like a matter of what, 8 seconds?
Yeah.
I mean, we were just messing around, and all of a sudden we're live.
Boom.
Wow, wake up call for you on this morning. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode, 15, Quince on the Spanish dial.
Quince.
Of the Mind Your Puckin' Business podcast, always heard on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. What am I forgetting?
Everywhere your podcast.
Yeah, Apple, anywhere. You can find us. If you need us, you can find us.
Absolutely.
And if you do need us, as always, you can reach us at MYPB show at gmail.com. We do check that often, and if you're following us on camera, I'm going to expect it's going to come across your screen. There it is, right on cue.
A little late that time, but
it's all right. Again, we went from pre-show to right into it fast today. So welcome to the program, and we hope if you're listening in the United States, you had a good Thanksgiving holiday, even though I'm sure it was different for everyone, considering the circumstances we are all dealing with here. So we hope you had a good Thanksgiving holiday. How was yours, Dougie Sticks?
It was good. Very chill. Nothing to report.
Nothing wrong with that.
Turkey was good. Stuffing was great.
How was the pie?
Pie was good.
That's all.
We had a Cool Whip shortage, so we bought. Me and Adrian brought some things, and we left the Cool Whip in the fridge. So last second, we had to go make a stop at the store. And they were kind of like out of Cool Whip. So I got like 5 cans of the spray whipped cream. Whipped cream? No. Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah,
I got you.
It's whipped cream.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
And it worked out.
For some reason, I'm drawing a blank, but yeah, it worked out great. Everyone had their own can.
I tell you.
Very COVID safe.
And a lot of calories, too.
A lot of calories.
Which is the point of the holiday.
Yeah.
Well, good. Glad the holiday worked out.
How about yourself?
It was good. Ended up with the... I know I told you the story off the air, but, ended up the 4 of us, which is good. Anytime, it's Jess and the kids is always good. I don't care what we're doing. So that was good. And it was a good holiday, a little bit quieter than what we're normally used to, as it was for everyone, but it was good. And we roll along. And this morning, I'm driving in before. Did you see it was snowing before? When you came in?
It was a little flurry, yeah.
Oh, God. Right? Well, it is December.
It's not even that cold out.
I know, which was weird. And it's kind of warm. But anyway, we hope you had a good Thanksgiving holiday if you're listening to us in the United States. And I hope you also enjoyed the show last week with Curtis Gabriel. What an awesome guest he was, huh? He was like the man. Cool. He was the man. So coming up on the program today, and I always throw in the should technology work because we never know. Should be joining one of our guests that's been with us before. That is awesome, and that's Geoff Sheasby of Old Man Who Bet. You can see him on CBS. He's a gambling expert, especially with the NFL, and he should be joining us in a little bit. But before we get into him and his visit, let's talk about our picks last week because we'll talk with Geoff really about this coming week. So last week, we were going into a Thanksgiving week number 12, and we were 6 up and 5 down. So I said last week, and I believe you agreed with me, this was a crucial week. We had to turn the tide, and we had to get back to winning because a 500 record doesn't win you money.
No.
So we picked 5 games, and the first game that we picked last week was the Thanksgiving primetime matchup between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens on Thanksgiving night. Well, we sit here now 6 days later, and the game still hasn't been played. It's scheduled to be played today because of a COVID-19 outbreak that has affected the Baltimore Ravens. So we don't know if our -4 pick is going to be successful, the Steelers. However, In the other 4 games we picked, Dougie Sticks, we are 3 up and 1 down. So it doesn't even matter. We are back on a winning week. So we did have some success for you on the Thanksgiving weekend, week 12 in the NFL. We had the Jacksonville Jaguars plus 6.5 versus Cleveland at home. They lost, but they only lost by 2. So we had that right. And then the 2 games that I was all about, I was really adamant about in the spread that we had right. And that was the New England Patriots at home getting points versus Arizona. They won the game outright. And the other game, I have to admit, was closer than I thought, but we had it right, was the Giants giving 5.5 on the road to Cincy. And if it wasn't for a late touchdown by Cincy, actually it wouldn't have hit. But you kind of had the backdoor cover, and the Bengals only lost by a few. And the one that we had wrong, and it will be a good lead into one of my bets here for week 13, is the Minnesota Vikings -4 versus the Panthers. They came back and won the game, but they only won by 1, 28-27. So that's a loss. But at least for the week, Dougie Sticks, we are back to winning.
Yeah, baby.
That winning feeling where you do cartwheels coming in and out of the studio here can come back into play as we had a winning week on Thanksgiving. And again, that last game, the Steelers -4 versus Baltimore that we picked. Can we get the spreads up?
Yeah.
Let's bring the spreads up because what I didn't look at, the Steelers cannot be giving 4 anymore. It's got to have gone up, right?
It's 9 or 10, depending on where you're going.
Yeah. So we have this fancy screen here in the studio that you can't see at home, but it's got all the spreads and all the games up. And yeah, so we actually have them at -4. So we should win that bet, you would think, today.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't matter without. So with a winning week, we are now 7 up and 5 down, heading into week 13. So let's talk about week 13, and I'm going to make my picks, and then we'll run through them with Geoff as well if he joins us.
Mm-hmm.
I like, and this pick is one that I'm going to ask him about because I'm a little bit confused on this one.
Mm-hmm.
The Texans are getting 3 at home versus the Colts. Okay. Now, the Colts have had a good year, although they got absolutely humiliated at home this past weekend versus the Tennessee Titans, and Derrick Henry basically ran all over them. But the Houston Texans have been playing better. They destroyed the terrible Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. So getting 3 at home, give me the Houston Texans getting 3 versus the Indianapolis Colts. The other game, so this is stupid, right? This is, what's the saying? I always mess it up in life. Fool me, once, shame on. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
George Bush actually has a great version of that quote. He's like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice. You can't get fooled again.
Okay. Well, I'm about to get fooled again because a couple weeks ago, I had the Falcons getting 5 against the New Orleans Saints because Drew Brees was out. Mm-hmm. I lost it. Guess what? Comes back. They're playing again. Drew Brees is still out, and the Falcons are getting 3, and I'm going to take them again at home. So if it happens again and I get fooled twice, the blame on this one is all on me. So give me the Falcons +3 at home versus the New Orleans Saints. Give me the Jacksonville Jaguars +9.5 at Minnesota. Minnesota was the one game we had wrong last week, but Minnesota cannot blow anyone out. Like, if Minnesota wins, it has to be close. 9.5 is a lot, and Jacksonville, which is a 9.5 point favorite, is not that bad that they should be 9.5 point underdog in Minnesota. So give me the Jacksonville Jaguars. They were good for us last week. We'll go with them again. The other two we're going to pick, the Chargers -1 at home versus the Pats. Look, Anthony Lynn may be on his way out there in San Diego, but the Pats got to travel cross country. Cam Newton has not been playing well. Justin Herbert has. Keenan Allen has. Austin Eckler's back. Chargers, you got to find a way to win this game. Give me the Chargers -1 at home versus the Pats. And the other one, Monday Night Football, the Bills -2.5. Technically, they are at San Fran, but I don't know, Dougie Six, if you saw the situation.
Arizona.
Yes, it's moving to Arizona because you cannot play any sports in whatever county San Francisco is in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really now a neutral site, and I know the argument is there's no fans anyway, but this is now a neutral site game. San Francisco is not good. Josh Allen is good, and Stephon Diggs is good, and a lot of these guys on Buffalo are. Give me the Buffalo Bills -2.5 on Monday night. So to recap, the Falcons +3 home against the Saints, the Texans +3 home against the Colts, the Jaguars on the road in Minnesota +9.5, the Chargers at home versus the New England Patriots -1, and then the Monday Night Football, because we like to make you sweat it out. I'm sure we'll be 2-2, and we need that to determine the week. The Buffalo Bills -2.5. We will pick the Giants and Jet game in a little bit, but we can bring in, because I see he is ready and he's queued up on the screen here. That is the great Geoff Sheasby. How are you, Jeff?
What's going on, guys? Great day for a great day. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday to you too. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was good, man. I was down in Florida seeing the fam, which was always weird, traveling and whatnot, but had my mask on, my hand sanitizer at the ready, and so far so good. How was yours?
It was good. So tell me a little bit, in my real job, in a non-COVID world, I travel all the time. I'm on planes, I feel like 2 or 3 times a month. Well, I've now been out of a plane since February. What is it like? Is it even crowded?
It was weirdly okay. I've traveled a couple times. I was down in Florida for my mom's birthday as well in September. Again, as things were kind of quieting down. It's so interesting, right? I'm coming from New York, where we've got 400,000 cases of coronavirus. The county down there in Florida has maybe 10,000. So it's kind of a weird dichotomy of coming from the epicenter of coronavirus to the suburbs where people are still pretty masked up, which was great. But traveling was fine. I flew out early. I was maybe 4 minutes through security in Newark, and then in Orlando, which was the bigger concern, because I've waited in those lines for hours at end. Literally, they had all 22 stages open, and I was the first person in line. I was through security there as well in less than 10 minutes. So, interesting on the plane. Obviously, I had the middle seats myself, with a gap, which was great. But there were, the plane was pretty crowded. But planning on getting tested either today or tomorrow just to check the box that I did not pick up coronavirus. And I won't be traveling anytime soon for purely pleasure, but hadn't seen the parents in 9 or so months, so figured might as well shoot down there.
There you go. How was the weather? Hopefully better.
The weather was incredible, man. It was like 72, maybe low of 65, and sunny, no rain. It was delightful.
Cat.
Correct me if I'm wrong too. I mean, ticket prices to go to Florida like $20 now.
Yeah, it was insanely cheap, Doug. I mean, I think I flew Spirit one way, which was a bit of a roller coaster, but the base flight on that was $15. So I was like, okay, it's a 2-hour flight. Like, I think I can suck it up here. But for sure, super, super cheap.
That's a pretty good rate.
Want to go on a trip?
Yeah, I tell you. I'm a little upset we were in Orlando with the family last year, because we did not pay $15 for the family flight. That I do remember. Well, let's do this, Jeff. Let me run through our Week 13 picks coming up, which I just went through. I want to get your opinion on them. And then I'm going to ask you some general questions about the NFL. I want to get your insight on some things, if that works for you. So I got burned, and we were just saying this. The Saints played the Falcons a couple of weeks ago in New Orleans. That was the first game, if I remember. Drew Brees wasn't there, and I had the Falcons getting +5, and I didn't even come close. But for some dumb reason, I'm going to pick them again because now they're +3, but they're home, thinking that maybe the Falcons' offense has maybe finally found themselves after last week, even though they didn't have Julio Jones. They put up 40 on Las Vegas. What do you think of that?
That's a tough one for me. The Taysom Hill experiment here has been going well, but they haven't really played anybody, right? You got Denver last week without a quarterback. So it was 31-3, but okay, what do you make of that? And then the week before, they grinded out like a 24-10 win and a cover. But things that stand out to me here, looking at the defensive efficiency ratings, New Orleans is ranked number 2 right now in that, which is huge. Atlanta at 15, which is far better than people would think. But that is definitely a large enough discrepancy that is opening my eyes. I think what is good for your bet here at +3 is that the line is moving nicely in the Falcons' direction. They lost by a ton at +5, and now it's coming back up to +3. If it was moving the other direction, I think Saints all day. So I do agree with you in terms of line movement, line read, that the Falcons is a good play there. Will I play that one? Not entirely sure. I haven't been locking in my bets until a little later in the week just to make sure that no Rona injuries pop up too late. So I stand with you there. Yeah, exactly. Another no QB scenario. Or you look at today we've got the 3:40 game for the Ravens and the Steelers. Who knows when these games are going to be played. So I agree with you there. I see no qualms in taking that. I don't know if I'll play it, but I think you're probably on the right side there, at least from a betting perspective.
You know what I did? I got a text on Sunday with the Denver situation that there was an error in the Yahoo fantasy system where the guy, and I'm going to get his name for you because it's escaping me, but the guy who technically was the starting quarterback, Kendall Hinton,
he's actually
Denver,
a wide receiver.
Was a wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
So I lost Julio Jones, right, because he was going to be out. So I said, all right, so I'll play a guy. I can get QB points in a wide receiver. I'm not going to expect much. He got me negative 4.28. Here's his stat line: 1 completion, 13 yards, and 2 interceptions. Because an interception is -3. So in my 18 years of doing fantasy football, I have never had a single week score be so bad as -4.
Derek Carr got me 3 points, so
even better.
It wasn't even that far off.
Even better. So moving on to the next one. This one confused me a little bit. And that is the Texans getting 3 at home versus the Colts. I don't want to read too much into last week for either team because the Texans obviously played a really bad Detroit team that was so bad that their general manager and coach got fired within 48 hours after that. But I guess the Texans lost Will Fuller, so maybe that's part of the logic there. But the Colts were terrible. And Phillip Rivers, they did a whole feature on him on Thanksgiving because he was the Thanksgiving. I'm not on Thanksgiving. I'm sorry, on Sunday in the pregame. Hasn't really had that great of a year. The Texans getting 3 at home, I like that. What do you think?
Yeah, this one is for sure a fishy line. I think this is kind of a combination of an overreaction to the Houston win versus the Lions and an overreaction to the Colts getting, smacked down by the Titans. I think when you look at the Titans, you look at Derrick Henry, he's a locomotive, right? He's an absolute train. Houston doesn't have that. Houston does not have a Derrick Henry. They've got maybe a Duke Johnson. I don't think David Johnson will be back. And he's like a good third down back, if that. When we look at this game, we see the Colts with a point differential of +49 this year. We see a Houston point differential of -29 here. That's a pretty big deal. And you can obviously offset that a little bit by looking at strength of schedule. The Colts have played a far easier schedule than Houston, but they have showed up outside of this Titans game to most of their big games here. I think we look at yards per play and points per play offensively and defensively, both very similar here. But and even looking at efficiency stats, also pretty similar. We see a wash on offense, honestly. The Colts are 11th and Houston is 13th here. But on defense, I think this is going to be the X factor. This is why I would lean towards the Colts. In terms of defensive efficiency, we see the Colts coming in at 5. We see Houston coming in at 29th. So combo that with the fact that Will Fuller is out. I like Brandon Cooks for sure. Cooties looked pretty good. Akins is fine at tight end, but he's really that dynamic portion of their offense, and their defense already can't stop anybody. I'm looking to back a Colts team that's going to be pissed off after getting absolutely waxed, and hopefully cover this game with that defensive edge.
Got it. All right, next one. Jacksonville +9.5 at Minnesota. Does Minnesota ever blow anybody out? I don't ever remember them winning a game by 10 or 15 points.
Yeah, a great question there. They've been in close ones all season here. I'm pulling up their game log. Let's see. Have they blown anybody out? I don't think they have. They beat the Lions by 14. They got blown out by a couple teams. So, yeah, you're correct. And this Jaguars team, man, I heard you talking about it while I was in the back room or whatever before you're coming on. 9.5 is for sure a big line. And this is a little Jaguars team, though, that is literally backdoored every cover. Last game, Phantom roughing the passer keeps their Mike Glennon drive alive. They score for a garbage time touchdown. Every time I bet against the Jaguars, they score some garbage time touchdown. I believe they did it against – who did they play last week? Was it the Browns?
Yes. Man, they
done
did
it
it
like
versus the Texans too a couple weeks ago. at
yeah,
home.
and I believe the Packers as well with Luton coming down the field. So like something's got they did it with the Packers as well. Lost by 4. Jaguars lost by 2. I was fading them on both of those. I mean, up has been down for me in the NFL these last 3 weeks. It's been 3 of my worst weeks in my career betting the NFL. And the best part about it is coming into the fourth quarter, the old Scott Hansen witching hour. I've been trending towards undefeated, and in that 15-minute of gaming, I've gone pretty much defeated. So I don't know if I'll play this one. I don't know if I can get backdoored by the Jaguars again, but I would look at looking at all the stats, all points trended to Minnesota here. Jacksonville 32nd in terms of defensive efficiency compared to Minnesota at 12th. Offensively, we've got Minnesota at 9th. Jacksonville is at 24th. So that's a huge delta on both of those. I do think 8.5, 9.5, considering the fact that the Vikings haven't really blown anybody out, does show strength in that line. Good bounce back spot for them. I would lean towards the Vikings here. But that's probably a super public play and probably one I won't have. I think last week any teams that had over something like 65% of the bets, I think went like 1-7. So I'm very much treading lightly in terms of kind of line movement and money movement.
Got it. So my fantasy team, and I think we spoke about this when you were here last, Saquon Barkley goes out week 2 in Chicago, and that was kind of the end of it. I am still alive because of a guy I had never heard of before the season, and that is Justin Herbert, the quarterback out in the Chargers. He's actually rekindled Keenan Allen a little bit. Keenan Allen's having a really good year. He did not have a good year last year, so there's kind of some chemistry there. And they have Austin Eckler back. They have the Patriots coming into town, and you would think, because it's pretty much a public story now, Anthony Lynn's job is on the line here, their coach. I'm taking the Chargers -1 at home versus the Pats. Thinking the Pats have to go cross country. Cam Newton has not really been impressive, and the Chargers offense has been good. I mean, it really has. Their defense has not, but their offense has. So I'm going the Chargers here -1. What do you think?
This one is another one of those head scratcher lines for me. I think about the Patriots, and outside of the 3 weeks where Cam was, COVID positive and then just terrible. This Pats team has been pretty good, right? I mean, they lost the Chiefs by 16, but they were in that game with a backup quarterback for 3 quarters. Who else did they beat? They were in a score within the Seahawks on the final drive, could have won that game. They beat the Dolphins, which at the time wasn't a good win, but looking back on it, perhaps it was. They beat the Ravens. They were on the 10 against the Bills, driving on the final drive. The Texans, they were on the 15, the 25 on the final drive, and they come out and they beat the Cardinals. So for them to be such a short underdog here, I would have expected them to be a favorite. I don't think the public at all resonates with them between their defense, which has been lackluster, as well as Cam, which hasn't been pretty, but it has been moving the ball, which is interesting. I don't know if the stats reflect it. I guess their offense is towards the bottom of the barrel here, 21st in terms of offensive efficiency compared to the Chargers at 12th. That is nice. And then defensively here, we see the Pats at 31st in terms of overall efficiency with the Chargers at 23. So both pretty mediocre there. But, it's the type of thing where Keenan Allen has looked great, but then you can enter Hopkins last week with Gilmore back. All of a sudden, Hopkins was struggling. Belichick, obviously a far superior coach to Lynn here. Similar to last week when, if you're taking the Cardinals and the Chargers, I'd go the Cardinals all day. The Pats were +1 there, and now you've got the Chargers here +1 as well. Sure, they're out on the road. I think that's probably a huge public play playing the Pats there. But I'm a bit of a homer as a Patriots fan, but I also have watched every one of these downs, and the line doesn't make sense to me. So from a line read point of perspective, I very much agree with you that the Chargers is the play. I'm gonna have to spend more time wrestling with this one and really going into why the line is so small. My gut wants me to take the Patriots, but again, so sketchy that I'd probably join you with the Chargers there.
Well, anytime I can pull a Patriot fan away from supporting the Pats, I'm all for it. Just off the record.
I never bet with my heart, man. That's the fastest way to light money on fire.
That's same with me. I've learned that with the NHL, with the Rangers. The second you bet on the NHL, your team, you lose, and then you're pissed off twice. Your team lost and you lost money. So I stay away.
Double whammy, man.
Yes. Last game, I'm going to go with the Monday night game, and that is the Bills -2.5. The Bills are good. The San Fran is not. And now we're going to this neutral site situation. And again, there are no fans there anyway, but it's a neutral site. The Bills -2.5. Josh Allen's been impressive. Maybe he started out great, had a couple down weeks. He seems to be trending back up. I'm going to go with the Bills -2.5 on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, I like that as well. I think this one's a coin flip, honestly. I think the line is pretty accurate. I'm looking at it. I've got the yards per play, points per play stats up here. Buffalo offensive yards per play, 5.9 versus 5.6. Defensive, 5.7 versus 5.2. Pretty much a wash there, right? You can flip a coin and it'll be within 3 points. Points per play is very similar as well. Buffalo, slight lead on offense, on defense. San Francisco with a slight edge here. So, I don't know, man. This is another one, just I think super, super sharp, which isn't that great analysis. When it's that sharp in a coin flip, I'd probably lean towards San Francisco and a team that really needs to win here. They are ninth in terms of defensive efficiency, where this Buffalo D has been not as good as I think people think at 16th. Offensively, of course, Buffalo has been great on offense, 8th in terms of offensive efficiency. San Francisco is at 19th. So again, that's kind of like the perfect, better at offense, not as good as defense. Who's going to win the game? It probably comes down to turnovers there, and both teams have been relatively responsible in the turnover department. So I've got no qualms with you taking the Bills at -2.5. If you told me you were taking the Niners at +2.5, I'd say I could certainly find a narrative to that as well. I personally think super sharp and probably won't be a game that I play, but as always, best of luck, baby.
Thanks. So before we get into the games you would play, and then I want to go back to a bet you told us about, which was genius the last time you were on, because it not only did that bet hit, but it wasn't even close. You were dead on. We always pick the local games, and they're not in our 5 that we're picking, so we'll do them now. And that is the Jets are getting 7.5 at home versus the Raiders. I just have a hard time picking the Jets for anything right now, and you kind of want them to lose anyway because you want the first pick. So the Raiders got blasted down in Atlanta. They need to win. Josh Jacobs was terrible. I mean, he had like 7 yards for me over the weekend. And then the weekend before on Sunday Night Football versus the Chiefs, he scored an early touchdown. He had 30 yards at the end of the first quarter and then it barely did anything. I don't know what happened. I don't know what's going on with him. But I'm going to go with the Raiders -7.5 at MetLife Stadium.
Yeah, I feel good about that. I mean, the Jets, I haven't updated this stat. My guy, the great Fusini on Twitter, hit me with it probably through like week 6. And the Jets weren't covering by like an average of like 12 points. Not that they were losing by 12 points, but they were not covering. They were losing by 30, which is insane. And I think the Jets have had some interesting comparisons this last week, through the media, through Twitter, whatever, where, they scored 3 points last week. And so did Denver, right? Denver had no QBs and scored 3 points. I don't think that's a fair comparison because if you look at the yards, the Jets had like 190. The Broncos had like 70. So, the Jets were at least playing football. Not good football by any means. But then, you look at the Saints on the other side of that game. They had like 250 yards, which is pretty lackluster. They scored 31 points. So the Jets should have scored more points with 190 yards than 3. But nonetheless, I agree with you here. I think they need to lose. Darnold didn't look great. Adam Gase is now calling the plays, which is probably the worst thing possible. Although he's denying it, which is hysterical. I mean, what an absolute clown show. So I think for sure, the data and the spot points to Las Vegas there, especially with them a bounce back after just a mediocre game. Making an Atlanta defense look good is pretty tough to do. But so is making a Seattle defense look good, and the Eagles found a way to do that on Monday night or Sunday night. So I support the Vegas right for sure right here at what is it, 8.5, 9 at this point.
It's 7.5. And speaking of that Seattle game, that's our other game we got to pick because the Giants go up to Seattle and they are getting 10. It doesn't sound like they're going to have Daniel Jones at quarterback. It sounds like Colt McCoy, the great quarterback from the University of Texas, is going to be behind the center there, and they're getting 10. Look, 10 is a lot of points, but I don't know how they're going to be competitive, especially with the Seahawks offense. Chris Carson is back. He was okay the other night, but he seems to be healthy. Metcalf, the receiver there, is there. I mean, oh my goodness. I never even heard of this guy. And he very well may be the first guy picked in wide receiver fantasy next year. He's that good. If he's not, I mean, he'll be in the top 3 for sure. And then you have Tyler Lockett. And Russell Wilson, of course. So I'm going to go with the Seahawks here -10. I know it's a lot, but it's just hard to see how the Giants are going to even keep this close.
Yeah, I completely agree here. I think honestly, it almost feels like a good buy low spot for Seattle. Obviously, Seattle didn't cover versus the Eagles on that ridiculous Hail Mary. Comically, I loved the Seahawks, but I was like, I got slaughtered this week. I'm not seeing the board well. I'm going to stay away from this game. which was one of the best decisions I've made in quite some time. Because what an epic loss. Another one where the fourth quarter just dooms me. But you look at the Seattle body of work. The defense hasn't been good, and the offense was sputtering. A couple weeks ago, the last 3 or so weeks. But I think that's huge in the sense that Carlos Hyde was just coming back and Chris Carson was just coming back, and people think it's the rush show out in Seattle, but their offense, their run game is huge to keep offenses honest. And I think they're some of the best team in the league when they're running that play action. So I think with Carson healthy, with Hyde healthy, that's huge. I think this offense will continue to fire off on all cylinders. The Giants' defense has been good, not great. They're scrappy, they're resourceful. I think they've got some promise for the future, but I do think it'll be too much, especially in Seattle, for the Giants to hang on. And you brought up a great point, right? Colt McCoy, the dude's 7-21 in his career. Sure, he was on some terrible, terrible teams. So maybe that's more reflective of the organizations he was playing for than his own talent. But nonetheless, no Saquon, no Danny Jones. I think it's going to be a tough battle for them. I think they probably put up, I can see that being like a 30-10 game and maybe close for the first half. But I think the Seahawks offense will be just far too much. And that's definitely a bet I'll have circled to go a little bit deeper on.
Yeah, I don't know where the Giants are going to get points from without Saquon or Daniel Jones this weekend. So what do you like this week? Anything jumping out at you? I know you don't make your bets till later in the week, but is there anything that you're looking at right now and you're like, wow, this is interesting?
That Seattle game is for sure one. I've got some stats here that I pulled as just kind of like an early look. Seattle's point differential here plus 31, the Giants minus 39. I think the NFC East championship race here to win the division, I think is kind of keeping the public interested in these teams, but they shouldn't be covering. Yards per play is a huge victory on offense for Seattle here, 6.2 versus 5.0, and of course that's only going to be downgraded with Colt McCoy. So I think Seattle is a good pick. 10 is certainly a lot. I was looking at it at 8.5 earlier in the week, so need to definitely revisit that. I do love the Colts this week and that overreaction, underreaction. And I think the Rams could be an interesting line as well. I saw it move from 2 to 2.5 after they lost this week. And of course, Arizona lost as well. But I thought that movement was interesting. And that's going to be a game that I'm going to be going a little bit deeper on for sure. So I think games I've got circled, I would look at maybe Miami at 11.5. I need to look at that line. It was 11.5 coming in on Tuesday. Just in the sense of I love fading a triple backup quarterback or whoever they're going to start isn't going to be good. Similar with the Giants. And honestly, similar with the Jets. Is Darnold a starter? That's a whole other topic. But I do need to – I think those are going to be really three really public picks, so definitely need to go under the hood and kind of verify them to not get just another Vegas slaughter here. But align with your picks. I think Vegas is an interesting one as well.
Got it. So go ahead, Dougie.
Speaking of quarterbacks, all right, I got a little fantasy question for you. So I had Dak. We all know what happened with Dak. He's done for the season. Then I picked up Derek Carr. I got Derek Carr and Tannehill. Derek Carr got me 3 points yesterday or last week, right? Now he's playing against the Jets. Do I go Derek Carr against the Jets or do I go Tannehill against the Browns?
Oof.
A good question, man. Tannehill has been so interesting. You look at his stats. This goes back 2 or 3 weeks ago, but in his last 16 games, he threw for something like 4,700 yards, 41 touchdowns, and like 8 interceptions. The only numbers that were better than those were I think it was Breeze and Mahomes. So Tannehill is for sure a safe play. Obviously, you get a risk of them just pounding the rock all day, every day. But I think you're in a win-win scenario here. Obviously, the Jets defense can't stop anybody either. I'd probably go Tannehill, but wouldn't be mad if I had to start Carr.
How good, speaking of Tennessee and their offense, how good is A.J. Brown, underrated receiver there out there in Tennessee? He had, I think, a 76-yard touchdown the other day. He's great, this guy A.J. Brown. He actually torched me in my fantasy Super Bowl last year, so I'm a little bit bitter still, but he is good, A.J. Brown. He really is.
The man's got the wheels. If you took like Tyreek Hill and Derrick Henry and made a receiver, I feel like you get A.J. Brown. He's got the wheels of Hill and the elusiveness, but he's diesel. And like a little DK Metcalf in there as well. I love this kind of resurgence of just like Megatron-esque wide receivers here, just guys that are physically superior to the defensive backs. And this, I mean, if the Titans defense can just firm up a little bit, this is a scary team coming into the playoffs.
And speaking of Tyreek Hill, not only on my fantasy team did I have this quarterback who had -4 points for me in my wide receiver slot, my opponent had Tyreek Hill, who had 2 touchdowns and 203 yards at the end of the first quarter. So I don't need to tell you if I won or lost this week. I had a -4 in my wide receiver, and he had about, I think it was 47 points at the end of the first quarter.
So since we're on fantasy subject here, both of you guys can help me out in this. There's a lot of injuries and there's a lot of COVID going around, right? Is there any secret fantasy players out there that we could pick up? Any secret little guys about to, become quarterback for the Denver Broncos or something?
Not this week, I don't think. Taysom Hill, your point about him being wide receiver eligible, he was tight end eligible a couple weeks ago in FanDuel, which was big. So I got 24 points out of my tight end there. Still didn't cash, obviously, because the rest of my lineup was mediocre, but it always feels good to get one win there. COVID watch-outs, I don't think any on the secret side. I think on almost the other side, I think a lot of players are getting cleared for the Ravens, especially in the running backs. It looked like it was going to be Gus Edwards leading the charge. I'm pretty sure Ingram and Dobbins just got cleared. So if you have any guys going today at 340, watch out for that. Have there been any other huge outbreaks since that one? I don't think there have been.
No, thankfully they closed the facilities, I believe, Monday and Tuesday this week to try and curtail some of the stuff going on. So there has not been so far, but hopefully it will stay that way.
Yeah, fingers crossed for sure.
So let me, last time you were here, I'm going to give you some credit, Geoff, because the last time you were here was the end of September, and it was going into, I believe it was week 5, and you were on the show, and that coming weekend, the Indianapolis Colts were traveling to Chicago. And totally random, I never even look at over-unders. I just don't really often. You were all about the under in this game. It was under 45. You said, you know what, I'm all about it. I'm going to pound it. And you blew it out. I mean, because the total final score was 19-11. So you basically slaughtered it. So nice work on that. The last time you were here, we got to give you some credit because you were all about that bet.
I appreciate that, man. It's been super interesting. I think I forget what the stat was, but any total over, I think it was 48 or 40.5 here. The over was hitting at like 63%. Any total under, I think it was like 46, has been hitting at like a ridiculous clip as well. I don't know if that's still true. That goes back a couple weeks, but kind of goes back to the mantra of when it's high, go higher, when it's low, go lower. Kind of let Vegas guide you into the side that you should be on, rather than saying, oh my God, 41, like that's so low. There's so much value in the over. It's low for a reason. And I think we were that week just early adopters on the fact that the Bears' offense is mediocre at best. So we'll take it.
Yes, as is their running back who I have on that fantasy team, David Montgomery, who's pretty terrible also. Go ahead, Dougie.
So I'm just going to say, Jeff's got to go soon, so he's got to jump off. But before he goes, Jeff, I know you've been doing some awesome stuff with charity. That I don't know if you want to go into that with the mustache, but you can find out more at Old Man Who Bets. And Jeff, you can go as in depth as you want with that. But you've been doing some good work and some good fundraisers.
Yeah, Doug, I appreciate it, man. And the mustache here, not always on, obviously, grew it out for the month of November. November corresponds with a charity called Movember. And Movember's thing is the mustache. It's a device here to start conversations about men's health. They're an organization dedicated towards mental health, suicide prevention, prostate cancer, and testicular cancer research and cures as well. Because at the end of the day, men are dying too young, on average 6 years younger than women. Suicide rates for men, white males specifically, 3.7x higher than anybody else. And globally, a man's dying once a minute, 60 men are dying per hour, which is just insane. So we raised something like $6,000 as a team. We had 35 people from the gambling Twitter and real life kind of going together, which was awesome. It was our best year yet. And I appreciate you, teeing me up here to give it a quick shout out.
Well, thank you. That's good work. Great. Keep up the good work, Jeff. That's awesome.
Great stuff, guys. Well, thanks so much as always for having me on here. I do need to jump off. We'll love to chalk shop again sometime soon.
Anytime. You're welcome anytime. Be well. Enjoy the rest of the week.
Thanks for the time. Let's cash some bets, baby.
If you want to check him out, Old Man Who Bets. Thanks, Jeff.
And that is the great Geoff Sheasby of the aforementioned Old Man Who Bets.
Yes, sir.
Really, the guy amazes me how well he knows his stuff.
Yeah.
We don't, you know this, but we don't prep him on the games we're going to talk about.
We don't even prep each other.
We don't prep each other, right? We don't. We roll,
Dive right in.
We roll right in
Yeah.
here. I sit down, and all of a sudden the lights are on, and we're
magic
going
happens.
I tell you. But he knows. I mean, like the way he goes into the stats, and my goodness. Whew. He's a good guest to have, so we appreciate his time as we head into week number 13. So we now only have 5 weeks of the NFL season left.
And what is it, like 3 more until playoffs?
It would be 5 regular season weeks, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Week 17 is where it ends. So we have 5 more regular season weeks, and then we will go into playoffs. And the playoff format this year.
I'm talking about fantasy.
Oh, fantasy.
Yeah.
Fantasy would either be, depending on your league, either 1 or 2 weeks left. Yeah, that's it. It's crazy. Fantasy football is always, and I say this every year, the fastest sport. You start it, and once you get into it, you get rolling, and then it's done. And
you're
that's
undefeated, and then all of a sudden you're last place.
That's happened to me many times. It's a regular occurrence for me. So are you looking like you may have any fantasy playoffs? Because I'm on the border.
I'm
all
on
over the place.
if I win the next 2 games, I mean, I'm just getting unlucky. Like Derek Carr, if he like did anything, I would have won that week. I got 3 points from him. The week before, Kamara kind of screwed me. I had like 3 points from him. So like I'm the better team. I'm undefeated. Like I was undefeated, and then Dak went down. The COVID stuff with Connor disappeared for like 2 weeks. You know what I mean? So like I have a great squad. It
is undefeated media.
True.
And I don't think, speaking of undefeated media, I said in the beginning of the show, like I normally do, we are coming to you from the Undefeated Media Studios.
I appreciate that.
Here in Bergen County, which aside from the snow that I had mentioned earlier, again today, detours all over this freaking place.
Every day they're doing something on one road.
It's this street.
And there's only road to get here.
I don't understand. And this has gone on because I'm only here once a week, right? So it's not like it's only
this has been good like 2 or 3 months that this one road here.
What is going on?
Every day it's something new. Every day. And today there's nothing going on. They're just 2 cop cars. There's nothing going on.
There's no work.
There's no work going on.
I don't know what's going on here.
There's some pipe. I don't know which way you're coming from, but there's the Wyckoff Gardens, like a half a block down, and they have a bunch of pipes and stuff over there. Maybe they're putting this one long pipe through this area. I don't know, but there's one road to get here, and it's always closed.
And they literally
Super
shut it
secret
down.
area. No one can get here.
I don't get it. But well, that is a wrap. So let me real quickly, because we kind of got deep into conversation there. Just a real recap, real quick on the week 13 picks coming up. The Falcons +3 at home versus the Saints. The Texans +3 at home versus the Colts, which Geoff definitely disagrees. He definitely disagrees with me on. Jacksonville +9.5. At Minnesota, the Chargers -1 at home versus the Pats. He does agree with me on that one. And then the Bills -2.5 at San Francisco on Monday Night Football. So we will see how we do. And next week, you and I will talk once we get off the air what we want to do guest-wise, kind of which way we want to go.
And if you want to be a guest, you could email us at...
Here we go. Cue it up. MYPBshow@gmail.com. Come on, you can challenge us. We've had a couple people, I don't know if you noticed this, on some of the social media outlets that we're on, kind of compete with us against our picks. If you want to come on and
say
do
it
that,
to our face.
If you want to come on and do
say
that,
it to our face.
As they say with gambling, you got a 50-50 shot of beating us. It's a coin flip.
So yeah, definitely email if you'd like to be a guest or come talk smack with us, or you can even ask questions at the email address, and we'll answer them live here on the show.
Now, we have not really focused a lot before we say goodbye here. We have not really done a lot of NHL at all, which is really mind your fucking business. Should be some NHL. There's just nothing going on. So the NHL really is in a situation. Well, they're trying to figure out what they're going to do with this upcoming season. So here's my guess, and then we'll sign off. The NBA is starting in 3 weeks. They are using arenas. They are out of the bubble. There just will be no fans. My guess is going to be that the NHL will do something along those lines. And the hopes is that, obviously, if the coronavirus can get a little bit better, maybe by the end of the season, they will have some fans in the arenas. And if not, by the fall, So which would be the start of the 2021-2022 season. Man, we're old. Now we're at the 2021 season. Jeez. Hopefully by the end of the season, or the start of next season, rather, there will be fans, and we'll be back at MSG, which is really all my kids want to do is go back to a Ranger game. That is it for me. Anything on your end there, Sunshine?
No. Great show. Great job today. And thank you, Geoff, for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Geoff Sheasby of Old Man Who Bets. Take care, everybody. Send us your emails. Any questions, we'll get to them. And enjoy the rest of your week.